Now we have two fantastic designers who make us look good on land and in water. So we're very excited to hear from Sensi Graves with Sensi Graves Swim and Jennifer Diana with JLD Studios. Take it away, ladies. Give them a hand, everybody.
I'm not under my name. It's okay. We're switched. Welcome, everyone. That was such a fantastic conversation. I just want to point out the Indigenous conversation that just happened was so important tonight. I want to thank those two for being up here and sharing that. Now we're going to talk about fashion. Completely different direction. Get excited. It's our intention today to shed light on a lot of the challenges that arise in the fashion industry and in apparel manufacturing specific to the U.S. So we'll be talking from both a brand point of view and a manufacturing point of view. So I'll start with myself. My name is Sensi Graves. I'm a professional kiteboarder, inspirational speaker, and founder of Sensi Graves Swim, which is a sustainable swimwear line for active women. We have been made in the US for over 10 years. We started here in Portland, and now we're produced in Los Angeles. And now I'll let my co-host, Jennifer Diana, introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. We have also been in business 10 years, and I think that's really exciting to have that longevity and starting to build brands here in the apparel market, since U.S. manufacturing is difficult in this industry. We are an activewear manufacturer, and we do everything in-house from design and development, prototyping to small batch production. We specialize in small and emerging brands with that just want to get started with 24 pieces, and we do up to about 5,000 pieces per design.
Amazing. So we have a lot to talk about. We've got 20 years of experience. We're going to be distilling it down into 30 minutes. And so my first question is to you, Jennifer. How do we even get started as a manufacturer? If I'm coming and I'm saying, okay, I want to produce this product, I have this grand vision for a company, where do we even begin?
I would say to start by educating yourself as much as possible on the product that you want to make. Many of the products that people come are out of necessity, right? We've got a brand bag here that's done bras for nursing, and that was out of necessity. So take the time to learn about the problems and what your customers looking for, and then come talk to us once you've kind of figured some of that out. We like it when brands send an email that is descriptive but not too long to talk about. So a lot of times make sure you're introducing yourself, telling us about what you're going to make. Don't start with it, I need an NDA before they'll talk to you. We get that a lot. And just really try and make sure that you're introducing yourself and that you have a good demographic and a good direction for where you're wanting to go. And then a manufacturer is going to be really excited to talk to you. How did it go when you first started reaching out and talking to people?
I love this question because we come from such different backgrounds. I had no design background, no manufacturing background. I went to school for communications. And so when I decided I wanted to start a swimwear company, I was just beating this horse that trying to rise it and just make something happen out of completely nothing. So I had no idea what I was getting into. So if you're looking to start something, take some notes. She has a wealth of knowledge. But I delved into as much material as I could find. And I remember I went to my network and I said, talked to every single person that I could think of that was even remotely in the business world at all, and reached out to all of my entrepreneur friends, anyone that was in apparel. And I said, hey, I have this idea and I want to start this brand, and I'm looking for someone in the US. And I think utilizing our networks, and that's why Built Oregon is so fantastic, because we have such a wealth of knowledge, and I was really open to learning, and that was a huge component of it. I didn't email manufacturers and have this perfect list. It was more organic conversations and saying, hey, I want to make some swimsuits. Can you help me?
I think it's great, though, to go to a manufacturer with, like, saying, I don't know what I don't know, right? Come to me and say, I don't know anything about making swimwear, but I have this idea, versus pretending maybe that you have a lot of knowledge and then we can't help you as much as we would like to, because we don't know where you need additional information. So and digging in like that's amazing, and just learning as you go.
What do you think are the challenges that most people come to you with as someone that's looking to keep it made in the US or go overseas? Because, right, there's, I mean, a whole breadth of manufacturing around the world. We've intentionally stayed made in the US. Why was that important for you and your brand, and what do you see people coming to you with?
So we started as a design studio. We were doing all the development, all the legwork leading up to manufacturing, and we did that for about 3 years, and our brands just kept telling us, I can't find a manufacturer. So we did the work. We started reaching out to manufacturers all over the US who's willing to work with our customers. Like, let's get this going. And we found this giant hole in the industry. As a business, we couldn't even get people to call us back. So how are our small brands that are just one individual breaking in? So that's why we launched our factory. I'm very passionate about providing jobs for people here in the US. And so those two things came together for us. And so we launched the factory to serve this community of people that just couldn't find manufacturers to work with them.
I really resonate with that story. When I first started, I was so scared to put any money into the business, and this is a big learning here, is to invest in prototyping, and we'll talk about that in 1 second. But my manufacturer, her minimum was 12, which means I was making 4 smalls, 4 mediums, and 4 larges of something, which is absolutely no product whatsoever. But I remember sitting there being like, oh my gosh, I don't want to invest $5,000 in this. What am I going to do? So it was really helpful for me to have that small manufacturing. And I think one of the biggest things about going overseas is that you have large MOQs, large minimums that you need to meet. And that's one of the biggest things I found with having a US-based manufacturer. A lot of times they will be more flexible. We'll talk about price point as well. But even if you have some manufacturing overseas, keeping something in the US allows you to have that little bit smaller batch quantity where you can maybe test a product and not have to have all your eggs in one basket.
It's also an easier place to learn. Some of our brands that did find manufacturing overseas, because they're so small, their product would be dumped to the side when a larger brand came in, or the quality control's just not there. It's difficult for all of us small businesses to, yeah, we're just gonna hop on a plane and go spend a week in another country, and we know nothing about manufacturing this, but we're gonna tell someone who's been doing this for 30 years how to exactly manufacture our product. So we've had customers, we had one customer that ordered a few thousand units of a product that had zippers, and when they landed, none of the zippers worked. And then they had to pay someone else to go take those out and replace the zippers. So bringing it closer to home, being able to go step into your factory, work with them, understand the process makes a huge difference, no matter if you're making apparel or you're making food or anything else that you're making at this time.
Yeah, my manufacturer's, her name is Esperanza, and we have a really great relationship now because I'm able to go down to LA so often and say, how are you doing? And we actually have chats and sit in her office. And you could cultivate those same relationships, but it seems to me that so much of manufacturing and what I've learned is communication and relationships.
Absolutely. And have you had an experience where going down there fixed a problem or improved your processes that wouldn't have happened if you didn't have that one-on-one communication?
Oh yeah, 100%. Because over email and even over the phone, I speak to her all the time. We actually FaceTime, and she's a little bit older. So sometimes her FaceTime is like down here, and I'm like, Esperanza, I can't see your face. Can you actually like put it up so I can see you? She's hilarious. But having us be able to prototype together has lended itself a lot to improving the product because we can actually have really good communication. So much gets lost. Going back to that communication piece, so much gets lost over email and even phone calls that there's just nothing that replaces that in-person meeting. And so we've been able to streamline our pattern making and take existing pieces and make new patterns off of them and we brainstorm together. And so it's more collaborative to have that face-to-face meeting, and it's been really beneficial for our relationship. That being said, the entire process itself is complicated and requires good communication, and so I think one of the biggest barriers in our chats leading up to this, we were talking a lot about prototyping and how to get ready for manufacturing, and if you're in early stages or you're established as a business, how to improve that process. So from a manufacturer's point of view, what gets lost in the prototyping?
Well, the first thing that gets lost is when people don't want a prototype.
I've been there.
It's expensive, right? It takes a lot of time and money to develop the product, but if you don't do those steps and really work your way through it, the end result is questionable. So if you look at it and say, okay, I have a budget of $10,000 to get this product off the ground. Am I going to spend $100 on one prototype and then expect to put the rest of it into production and hope for the best? Or am I going to maybe break it up and spend $3,000 on the development process, make sure it's right, develop something that can be iterated later and developed on. So next time it's not going to cost $3,000, next time it's going to cost $1,000 to get that product up and going. And then your production's going to come out so much better. And during that prototype process, you can really look at what is available from your manufacturer, from multiple manufacturers in the area, so you're not just working with one person, and really figure out the best way and most cost-effective way to get that product out there and get it right. Hopefully on the first try. I'm sure we all know that takes a few times to get it there. But taking the time to work through that process is invaluable in the long run in building your business.
Once again, we need to take notes on this. I've gone through so many production runs. You'd think I would learn. I know now. But you think I would have learned a long time ago. You have to prototype everything. I would make, design my whole line. And because we do swimwear, we have one style that comes in 4 different colors, and that's across the entire line. And I'd be like, okay, it's okay if I just make one sample in one color. I don't need to make samples in all the colors. No. Then something comes out and you're like, okay, this doesn't look exactly how I want it, or actually it doesn't merchandise as well as I was thinking in my mind. Always make samples of everything. You don't want to invest $10,000 and have it be sitting on the shelf and not moving because you didn't do your due diligence. So that's one of my biggest learnings in 10 years of doing this.
And even if the product's sellable, you're going to have more problems selling it because you don't believe in it, because it hasn't come out the way you expected it to. So you're going to use your own bias and not really stand behind it and get the sales. And then that's just going to multiply into not getting your brand into the next season and not growing the business.
So let's talk about expectations as a manufacturer. What do you expect new brands or established brands to come to you with?
Nothing. Because we work with a lot of small brands, people have never done this before, I generally just kind of assume that they don't know anything about what they're doing and they're not going to bring me anything. There's a lot of companies out there that will help you with parts of the process, and people come to us kind of piecemealed some things together. And we've gotten to the point that I can tell when someone's created a technical package, which is kind of the blueprint of what a garment should look like, on an online application where they've just plugged in information, and it's mostly about branding and labels and very little bit about how the garment's actually going to be put together. So I want people to come to me with an open mind and the ability to listen and take my over 20 years of experience in this industry into account when I say something, because I'm just trying to help you be successful. I'm not looking to gouge your pocketbook or make something that's not going to sell, because that doesn't help me as a business. I want you to be very successful and come back and ask me to make more and more year after year. So that's what's really important to me.
So it sounds like it's a communication and being open-minded and relying on someone that has greater experience.
Pretty much. And it sounds like that's what you're doing when you speak with your factory down in LA.
Once again, yes, I came in with no design background. And of course, the first couple years of suits were not very good. But I really believe in a shitty first draft, right? And if your product is perfect, chances are you've launched too late. And so I really was able to learn a lot through that process of development. And we still don't get it perfect, and we still mess up, and I think that's okay. In the development prototyping process, there's things that we miss. And so I can be as communicative as possible with my manufacturer, but there's always going to be something that goes wrong. And it seems that this happens across manufacturing in general. I don't know how many people here have a product-based business, whether that's food or apparel. No one is raising their hand. Yes, there we go. Thank you. It's hard. It's hard to get the idea, take it out, and iterate in a way that someone else really believes in. And even more depth into the storytelling part of it and building the brand and all of that behind it. But starting with a quality product, I believe is number one. So,
but I think you also said something there, quality, but not necessarily perfect, right? If we're waiting for perfect, you're right. We're never going to make it to market. We're never going to be happy with it. So that's part of the reason we also do small batch, so that you can do a tiny quantity, get it out there, whether it's 12 pieces, 24 pieces with us, get customer feedback. Make sure that perfection you're seeking is actually value added for your customer. Something you're obsessing over, they may never even notice in the product at all. So kind of taking a step back and looking at it from a further view and getting feedback from friends and not getting lost in the details is really important.
Okay, so let's talk about price point. Challenges with price point and being made in the US versus overseas. Do you want to take this one?
Sure. Obviously, it's a huge factor. It's constantly a conversation in my house. When we go buy cars, we try and buy American-made cars. When we're searching the internet for products, we try first to look for American-made products, because we're saying as a business, this is important. We're telling our customers, you need to educate and build a brand around this idea. So we really try and live it and believe it as much as possible, and it's hard. It is hard when you can buy something for $5 and to buy it in the US is $50. No matter what it is. So it's real, and I think it really comes down to building a story and building a brand and getting your customer to believe in what you're selling. And if American made is part of your story, creating something around that. Sensi, I think you do a great job with making sure that your customers understand it. Will you tell us more about that?
Thank you. Yeah, it was really important to me to keep it made in the US from a sustainability standpoint. We try and do everything as sustainable as possible. But it's important to me to be really transparent as a brand as well. And I think we can grow a lot from telling our customers, hey, we're not perfect. We don't know everything. And if you know or can find a way that this can be improved, please let us know. And that's really crowdsourcing our way to success, I believe, because we're saying, okay, we know we can do this better. Is there any level of perfection that we're reaching for that we're actually able to hit? No. So we're just on this path for constant improvement. And that, because it's a core piece of the brand and I knew it was going to be more expensive, I didn't do a good job, to be honest, of building it into the pricing in the beginning, and slowly have increased my prices over time to reflect that. But it was definitely a part of the storytelling from the beginning, because I said, okay, if I'm going to build a product, I want to do it in the right way. And what does that actually look like? And so keeping it USA made, using all recycled materials, going through each piece of the line and saying, what can we do here better? Once again, not approaching it from a perfection standpoint, but a authenticity standpoint of, okay, this is what I think is the best, but please, customers, give me your feedback and tell me if you think we can do this better. And if you know of a factory that makes sustainable or recycled bra cups, we're looking for one. Let me know. That way we can incorporate that into the process. And I don't think you get that same high touch component with an overseas factory, unless you have a really strong relationship with them. I could be wrong.
I mean, from what I've seen from our customers, I would agree. You're definitely not getting that. So on the price point, how do you handle communicating to your customers when you are raising your price and keeping them interested and engaged in the brand?
It's been just an honest conversation. We say, hey, our prices are going up at the beginning of the year. This is why. Here's all the reasoning. And once again, I really focus on transparency as a brand and saying, this is what it costs to make this bathing suit. And that's been really helpful for building customers that support us and that want to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to vote with my dollar and I want to support you because you're doing all these things. And because I'm open and honest about it, and I go on Instagram all the time and say, hey guys, production's coming up, we need money. This is what's happening. All my money is sitting in product. And just being open about it and really trying to have a bit of levity, right? Because if there's one thing we know, it's running a business is difficult, and how can I make this journey as enjoyable as possible? That's really my goal.
That's a really good goal to have. I think we could all use a little bit more of that in our lives. We try and do the same thing with our customers when we're talking about price point, is just really highlight everything that we're doing from an employee standpoint, right? Because at the end of the day, that's who's making the product. That's who's important. The materials cost more, shipping costs more, all of that. But we're dealing with that from when we buy cereal to shoes. Like that's just life for everyone. So really trying to, when we communicate with our customers, making sure that they understand and then can communicate further down the line that our employees are being paid an hourly wage. We don't do any piecework in our factory, that they have health insurance and paid time off and 401k. And we're trying to make a lifestyle that works for them. We work 4/10, so they all have 3-day weekends every weekend, which I have to say is a game changer. And that brings a little enjoyment back into life as well.
So let's talk about timelines and actually going into production and what to expect when you are coming into a factory and saying, okay, I want to produce this. I've got my prototypes done. We've done sampling. We're ready to go to production. What does that actually look like with you guys specifically?
So we generally tell our customers plan on 6 months, looking at a 3-month development cycle and a 3-month production cycle. Obviously, it's going to vary significantly based on the complexity of the garment and how many you want to make. But then I say, at the end of the day, it depends on you. So if I send you a garment, a prototype, for you to look at, and it takes you 6 weeks to get back to me with feedback, we're not going to keep that 6-month timeline. So that's where communication comes back in as well. You know, let your factory know you're a startup. You have a full-time job, and you're doing this on Friday night is the only time you have 2 hours to work on your new business idea. We're going to take that into account, and I'm going to follow up with you. Well, probably not on Saturday because I try really hard to keep those for myself. But I'm going to make a note. You know what? This is their time that they have to work on this. That's the day of the week that I'm going to follow up with them, and I'm going to make myself available so that we can have that open communication and try and keep those timelines in check because they grow. So when I say 6 months, that's kind of best case scenario, and I hope we hit it because I want to turn this over too. That's how we generate cash flow. But it could take a year. We've had clients take 3 years from when we made that first prototype to when we saw production. How long did it take you?
The first time?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I can't remember. But I do remember that when I first got the bathing suits, I was actually living in Maui at the time, and I got them in this, it was a small box smaller than this table. Remember, I only made $5,000 worth of suits. And when I left Maui, I left the island, I was carrying them in my backpack, going back home to North Carolina, because I was shifting coasts. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm almost out. Now I got to make more. How am I going to make that happen? So I think it was actually pretty quick from the time I got prototypes done to when we produced. Now we work on a much longer timeline. But you said something there, which I wanted to point out, which is when a brand approaches you, you sound like you're very encouraging. That hasn't always been the case. And I think when you go overseas or when you go to bigger factories, they really want to make sure that you are going to be able to pay, that you're actually serious, that you're making high quality goods, that you're going to be in this for the long haul. So if a brand's not at that point, what do you think that they can or should do in order to generate a little bit of practice or a little bit more stability in their business?
You know, it's really funny you say that. I just had a conversation this week where someone pretty much yelled at me that I need to clarify with my customers better that they have money. Because I tend to focus more on if you have the tools to be successful. Have you figured out who your demographic is? Do you have a marketing plan? Do you have all of that? And, you know, I guess I assume that if you're starting a business, you've set aside a budget and you have a plan to actually make it happen. So I don't necessarily think the other factories are wrong in kind of making sure some of those details are complete, specifically that you have money to make the product. But just kind of looking at it more holistically is how I try and tackle it, because we're not one thing. We're all these things that make our business, and you got to put it all together to be successful.
What's the biggest problem that people come to you with or have happen in the development or in the production process? I don't know why I just thought of that. I imagine people come with a lot of different issues. I know I
Everyone's got a
certainly did.
different issue.
And that's the thing, they really don't stop. Back to our original theme of keep going, you can do it. So
what's the biggest problem you've ever had?
In production, the third year in production, we had I don't remember exactly what went wrong in our pattern making process, but I was working with a local pattern maker and they were sized a little bit small in general, and then we went to production and the whole batch of suits came out 2 sizes too small, and so the smalls were really, really teeny. And I remember just getting that batch of production, and it's kind of like the zippers, except for we couldn't remake those into something else. They were literally baby suits. I still have some of them, and I think I need to just donate them at this point. I should keep one, put it on the wall as a reminder of what can happen. But I communicated that. Number one, I was like, okay, let me cry about it for a second. Number two, I took ownership and said, okay, this happens. That's okay. Mistakes happen. Let's figure it out. And then I contacted all my retailers and I said, hey, just so you know, everything's sized way down. We're still going to send you a full size run, but you're going to have to tell people that it's a little bit on the smaller side and just to size up. And then I communicated that to my customers as well. And it kind of did one of two things to communicate that. Number one, it made them trust me more because I was being authentic and honest. And I said, okay, order a size up. Everything was labeled on the website. Order a size up. This is labeled as small, but it's really tiny. And then it really built this community of women that were like, okay, I do really want to support this brand because they're authentic and they're transparent in what they're doing. And it's okay to make mistakes, and that is totally going to happen. I think there are other ways to approach that as well, but we decided to sell the product and just kind of move forward. If something like that happens in quality control and you're looking at these pieces and they're not exactly like you want them, what do you do as a manufacturer, and what's the expectation when I get something that I don't like? Can I send it back to you?
Yeah, so I'll share a couple stories of dumb things that we've done, because we've all done things that we're not really happy with. We were putting labels on a sports bra, and we do everything through sublimation, so the whole garment's printed as once, including the label, and we forgot that it gets folded up, so all the labels went on the garments upside down. Luckily, it wasn't a huge batch, but still, I looked at, the cost, but also the waste of redoing it is a big thing. So we just reached out to our customer and said, hey, this happened. We can just keep going and ship them as is and prevent additional waste, or we can remake them. It is up to you. And of course, they asked for a discount. We gave a discount, and we all moved on. But like the end customer, do we think they notice that their label's upside down? Not until they've worn it 5 times and have a question about it. And then we had another situation recently where in prototyping, we did not make a full prototype. We just edited this skirt portion of it and just sent the version of that. My mistake, I didn't go in and make sure the original file was updated in that process, and it resulted in production going out with all the skirts the wrong size. What I do? She sent them back. We're fixing them right now, and we're going to get them back out to her because shit happens and we just got to fix it.
Maybe that's the theme. Okay, so in closing, I would love to hear, what do you love most about your work, and then one takeaway for the audience.
I love the variety the most. Getting to do different products every day, work with different people, never having 2 days the same is just what makes me happy. And a takeaway, I just learned this week that I have to pay way more attention to how much money people have to spend, so I'm going to be focusing on that. So if you contact me and I ask you about your financial situation, I apologize. I'm still learning how to do that nicely. How about you?
My favorite thing, it's actually having conversations like this and learning and teaching, to be honest. But in the product side of the business, it's seeing something come to fruition, because we have all these ideas in our heads, and to see them out in the world, it's pretty dang cool. I think my biggest takeaway is communication. That is the number one thing. And to be able to be honest with yourself as a brand and not judge yourself so harshly and say, okay, it's okay if my timeline, you know, sometimes I'm nervous and I call my manufacturer and I say, Esperanza, I have a retailer and she really needs this in a month. Is that possible? And then she either tells me yes or no, and then we move on from there. But there was a long time when I didn't even want to say that, and I wasn't communicative about my needs up front, and it ended up with all of this tumultuous production happening. So communication is number one. That's it. That's all we've got. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.